Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
What's going on, guys? This is the GSMC Basketball Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Casey Foreman, and welcome to today's show. Hope you guys had a good weekend, a fun weekend of watching the return of the NBA, because obviously if you listened to my last podcast, if you've been watching TV, you know the NBA is back. So hopefully you guys had a good weekend. Thanks for tuning in to today's show. Let's go ahead and break down what today's show is going to have for you guys. I want to start out by talking about Zion Williamson, the New Orleans Pelicans, how they've played so far. If you have been listening to me, you know they were my pick to make that 8th spot in the Western Conference. So I want to talk about that team going forward and what I've seen so far. I also want to discuss the Los Angeles Lakers. Are they somewhat struggling early in these seeding games? I'm going to break down their couple of seeding games so far, tell you guys if I do in fact think they are struggling early. Then I want to pivot and talk about the Indiana Pacers. They're playing very well right now in their, I believe that they've only had one seeding game so far, but they're playing very well, and their guy Victor Olidipo has made a return. So I'm going to talk about that, and then make sure you guys stick around into my very last segment, because I'm going to talk about the Eastern Conference and who I think will make it out of the Eastern Conference, who has the best chance to make it out of that conference. Don't miss that segment at the very end. But like I said, I want to start out by talking about Zion Williamson, the New Orleans Pelicans. Zion, obviously, we know him as somewhat the next face of the NBA, the next face of the league. He's some people's rookie of the year even, and he's going to be on the cover of 2K21, the next video game about the NBA. He's going to be on the cover of that next game. And I want to tell you guys, he has played a total of 21 games in the NBA, and all of those things. Like I said, arguably some people are saying he's the next face. Some people are saying he should be the rookie of the year. He's on the cover of 2K, and he has played no more than 21 professional basketball games in his career. The NBA created this seeding tournament, these seeding games, and the possible play-in tournament in large favor, in my opinion, to the Pelicans. Okay, they gave the Pelicans a somewhat easy, I don't think it's really somewhat an easy seeding game schedule. And they also gave them extra chances, or giving them extra chances to make the playoffs with the play-in tournament that we're going to see. So they're giving him all of the windows, all of the opportunities that they need to make the playoffs. That they put Zion and the Pelicans as the first game back, for the NBA's restart. I talked about it in my last podcast. But they had Zion in there for the very first game. I think they did that on purpose. I know Zion equals ratings. Either way, they have a somewhat easy regular season seeding game schedule. They played pretty well. They looked pretty good in their scrimmage games before the official games started. In just their scrimmage games they played, the team without Zion played very well. I believe they won one or two of the scrimmage games, and I watched one of them, and they seemed to be playing in great team chemistry. All players played very well. Then, they go on to play their seeding games, and now they are 0-2. They lost both of their first two seeding games. And first it was to the Utah Jazz, and second it was to the Los Angeles Clippers. To be fair, this was the two hardest games on their seeding game schedule, okay, to give the Pelicans a little bit of slack. This was the hardest two games, the Jazz and the Clippers. I said it before. I didn't necessarily see that they would be playing them back to back. That's an even tougher thing to do, playing the two hardest games back to back. It wasn't a back, but in a row at least. I should say. But they lose both of them. They lost to the Jazz by 2 points. They played very well through the first three quarters, really, especially through the first two quarters. But they really played bad late. A lot of sloppy turnovers. It really looked like an older, more veteran team in the Jazz against a really young team in the Pelicans, which is, that is what it was. The Jazz ended up beating them, like I said, in a 2-point game late. I think in large part to do with Zion Williamson and his minutes. I saw that game. I didn't see before then. I didn't see any reports prior to, but Zion is on a minutes restriction, so he's only allowed to play 15 minutes as of right now in these games. I'll talk about that in a second, but he played 15 minutes against the Jazz. He was not playing in the final minutes of the game, the most important time he was not playing. But he did go 6 for 8 from the field, had 13 points, 0 rebounds, 1 assist. And plus negative, plus minus, if that's a stat that's important to you, it's a pretty important stat, and just looking in the day-to-day game basis. He was a minus 16 in the game. So even though he went 6 for 8, a good shooting percentage, that didn't necessarily translate on the floor, had some turnovers, was minus 16, 0 rebounds for Zion Williamson, which I thought was near impossible for a guy in his nature, but 0 rebounds for him, only 1 assist and 13 points, 6 for 8, only 15 minutes, which again, in my opinion, is the largest reason, that was was the biggest part of their loss. He wasn't in the game enough. As far as against the Clippers, they lost by 23 points. At one point, they were down 30-something points. To be fair, the Clippers made a franchise record three-pointers, like 25, 26 threes. They played very well. Clippers played very well against the young Pelicans, but still, Pelicans lose by 23, almost, like I said, at one point it was at 30 points they were losing by. Zion only plays 14 minutes, went 3 for 7, so only shoots 7 shots. Again, only shot 8 in his first game, only made 3 shots, only has 7 points. This time, he actually does get some rebounds, had 5 rebounds, 0 assists, was minus 17 for the game. Again, 14 minutes. That's why we see only 7 shots, 7 points, 5 rebounds, and 0 assists. And the negative 17, that's just because when I've seen him in the games, it seems like it's unmeaningful basketball, which isn't usually what you see out of Zion. But anyway, again, 14 minutes. Why are we seeing such a limited play? 14 in this game, 15 in the last. Why are we seeing such limited play from Zion, arguably, like we all say, the next face of the league, the next face of the NBA? The rookie of the year. Why are we seeing such limited play? We thought he was cleared. We saw more minutes in the games before. He just had 4 months off. Is there an injury we don't quite know about? Is it lingering? What is going on for Zion and the Pelicans? Why are we seeing only no more than 15 minutes in the first 2 games. Are they pacing themselves? Are they really waiting because they knew these first 2 games they probably weren't going to win maybe anyway? Like I said, these were the first 2 and the 2 hardest games on their schedule, so maybe they're simply pacing him early. Are we going to see increased minutes? We didn't see increased minutes though from 1 to 2. We saw actually decreased in minutes. He went from 15 to 14 minutes. I know it was a blowout loss, but still. Are they simply pacing him? Is there an injury? Is he out of shape? Are the Pelicans, are they scared to play him? Are they scared he's going to have another injury and not be able to play for the foreseeable future? What is the holdup? What's the drawback for this team? To me also, I should say, he doesn't seem, to be in the very best of shape. When I was watching him, he didn't seem, I saw pictures before the season, and it looked like he lost some weight, he looked pretty ripped. Not to say he doesn't look ripped now, but it doesn't necessarily seem he lost the weight it looked like he did prior. He doesn't really seem to be in the best of shape, though all we've really heard is that he's been training and is in great shape. Didn't really look like he was in great shape, kind of looked gassed, even though he only played 15 minutes and 14 minutes. So despite low minutes, really looked like he was out of breath, out of shape, not ready to play, or not in the right condition to play. Like I said, when he was playing, it somewhat seemed like it was unnoticeable, almost meaningless basketball when he was in the game, which for Zion, when he's playing the ball, or when he's playing basketball at a high level, high intensity, that usually translates to meaningful basketball, and it usually translates to wins and to high level play. But recently we haven't seen that, at least in the last 2 games, in only 15 minutes, we haven't seen meaningful basketball from him. And in his favor, though, to give him, to back him up a little bit, I haven't seen a whole lot of plays being run for him. I haven't seen Lonzo going down, getting a pick from him, and seeing Zion roll to the hoop, and seeing the game plan being get Zion the ball, on this pick and roll, or dump it down to Zion when there's clearly an inferior defender on him in the post. Or there's simply a set ran for him and he's the guy at the end with a wide open shot. I didn't see any of those things when I watched him. Again, I didn't watch every game or every minute of both games, but I watched most of both, and I didn't necessarily see a whole lot of that, if any. So again, in his favor, there weren't a whole lot of things being run for him to get him in position to score or to do things. So I didn't really see a whole lot of that. So for the Pelicans' sake, what's up with that? Why isn't Zion your best player getting the ball more than a guy like Brandon Ingram, who scores more, but the impact of Zion is far greater than a guy like Brandon Ingram, who's a good scorer, but the impact, like I said, of Zion is huge. His intensity, he can move the momentum, the favor in a game with just a couple minutes of him getting a couple of big dunks and a block or so can completely change the momentum of a game. So I don't see why we aren't seeing more sets run for him, more plays run for him. That is what I would like to see out of the Pelicans. Also, I would like to see more minutes for the rookie, the quote rookie of the year in some people's opinion, and the next face of the league. How can we call him this without seeing him play more than 30 minutes a game consistently? I know what he's doing is great, or for the most part is great in the regular season, but the first 2 games I haven't seen much. I'm expecting more. I need more minutes from him. I need more plays ran from him to see if he is in fact that guy, and if he can in fact get the Pelicans to the playoffs. Like I said earlier, I did in fact pick this team to make the 8th spot, to win the race for the 8th seed. Obviously, they're up against Denver, Toronto, the Spurs, or not Toronto, not Denver as well. What am I saying? The Grizzlies. I was looking at another thing going through. They're facing the Grizzlies, the Portland Trail Blazers, and the San Antonio Spurs for that 8th spot. Again, I was looking at a TV screen with those teams on it, so sorry. But they're facing those teams for the spot. I picked them to win over those teams, but they have to win. Since they dropped 2 games in a row, they have to win at least 5 of their next 6. I think they need to win out to comfortably get that 8th spot. But they at least need to win 5 out of the next 6 to make it interesting. They did have, like I said, their 2 hardest games out, or their very first, with the Clippers and the Jazz. So they got them out of the way. But what I've seen so far hasn't been great. But as far as what's next for them, like I said, 6 very winnable games. They played the Grizzlies, the Kings twice, the Kings twice, the Wizards, the Magic, and the Spurs. So all of those teams are I believe, negative in the win-loss column. So the Pelicans can make a big swing in momentum here by winning 5 or 6 of the next 6. That is what they are going to need to do if they want to win. Like I said, they also need Zion to have more minutes, more touches, more plays ran for him. Because like I said, he can change the momentum very quickly in a game, in a series, and in this race. He plays, like I said, the Grizzlies, a team he's fighting with, the Spurs, a team he's fighting with. So if he can beat those teams, they're looking even better to make the spot. Again, they have to arguably win out to make it. And if we continue to see what we have seen, I'm not too confident they will make it. They will be playing by my next episode. So by my next episode, I'll definitely have an answer for you guys if I'm still saying the Pelicans are going to make it, or if I think another team, the team I'm thinking right now, besides them, is going to be the Portland Trail Blazers, because they're so healthy. But the Trail Blazers have a little bit of a tougher schedule going forward in comparison to the Pelicans. The San Antonio Spurs are looking pretty good right now. They're at 9th in the conference. So there are a lot of other teams. Like I said, the Trail Blazers, the Spurs, that can make it over them. The Pelicans have to win out, and the only way I think they do that is, again, if Zion gets more minutes, more touches, and more plays ran from him. I really might have overestimated this young and talented Pelican team. I hope I didn't underestimate them. For a whole while, I was really thinking, my opinion was that the Trailblazers had the best chance, but once these seeding game schedules were released, I really thought the Pelicans had the best chance to make it, but I might have been wrong. It might be a more veteran experienced team like the Trailblazers or the Spurs, or it might be the underdog team that has it right now in the Memphis Grizzlies. So they do have a tough schedule as well. So the favor is in New Orleans as far as schedule goes, and what's left for them. But like I said, if we continue to see what we have seen from them, I'm not too confident, and we might be seeing a different team in that 8th spot. Either way, we still have games to go, basketball to go on. It's awesome watching basketball almost all night and then waking up and having it, in the middle of the day, and then again going to bed with it. So it's awesome to have it back again in such a major way, in such a big load. So I'm glad to have it back. I'm sure you guys are as well. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. When I come back, I'm going to talk about those Los Angeles Lakers. Are they struggling early? Don't go anywhere.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, guys, welcome back. Like I said before the break, I want to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers, a team that is often in the news and in the media, rightfully so. But a team in the Lakers, we know them as an older, veteran, experienced team. I expected them. I think a lot of people expected them to make the transition from the regular season, the hiatus to the bubble. I think a lot of us expected them to take the transition, rather smoothly and not necessarily miss a beat, skip a beat, despite the losses of Avery Bradley and Rajon Rondo, which like we see now, Rondo, which a lot of people did expect, but really a loss on that defensive end with the loss of Avery Bradley. But either way, we all really did expect them to hop in smoothly and not miss a beat. And so far, they pretty much have. For the most part, they played pretty well in their scrimmage games. LeBron played well. AD played well. We saw Dion Waiters, J.R. Smith. We saw Kuzma play really good one game. So overall, the hopes were high for the Lakers, and expectations, especially from the get-go, were high for the Lakers. They seemed like a very high chemistry team, almost like a college team, just having fun on the road in a tournament. They really seemed like at the beginning. They still seem that way, but still, so far they're 1-1 in their seeding games. They beat the Clippers and lost to Toronto, but they beat the Clippers on the official return of the NBA on TNT by 2 points. If you guys watched that game, it was a very close one, right down to the wire. It was anybody's game. LeBron gets the game-winning shot, gets his own rebound, hits the bunny at the a couple of seconds left, but still hits the bunny by the rim, and they go up by 2, end up winning the game. Like I said, though, a very close game. Could have went either way. But one of the bright shining stars, bright moments of that game, Anthony Davis, 34 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. Also only had 2 3-pointers I thought he had more, but 2 of his threes were huge in the third quarter, and at a time where they were down 10, 11 points, he then scores 10 out of their 12-point run, and they're right back in the ballgame. If Anthony Davis doesn't hit those 2 threes in the third quarter, we probably have a different outcome at the end of this game. But he shines. He plays very well. Like I said, especially, I think he had 10, 12 points in the third quarter. But he hits huge shots in the third quarter, a huge part of why they came back in the game and ended up winning the game. Like I said, 34 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, had a block or so. Lakers played pretty good overall. Everybody looking down the roster, Kuzma had 16 points, 7 rebounds, also had 4 3-pointers. So he came off the bench, played some pretty good defense on Kawhi like we saw. I saw a couple of good highlights and playing some, not quite lockdown defense, but I think he does have potential as a defender. He was a one-way player when he first came into the league. Now we see him working more on his defensive side, defensive game. Not necessarily a powerhouse yet by any means, but a guy that has potential. I think he's a little jumpy right now. He needs to sit back, be a little more comfortable as he guards them, but either way, he puts a lot of pressure on the guys he seems to defend as of lately. So he played very well. Kuzma did, like I said, 16 points, 4 3-pointers off the bench. Dion Waiters comes in, gets you 11 points. Caruso gets you 7 points. JaVale McGee gets 7 points, or 6 points, 7 rebounds. So overall, that Laker team, along with Anthony Davis, plays very well, and they beat the Clipper team. The only downside, drawback to the win, the only thing that you're really like, dang, that sucked. LeBron and his shooting, okay? He was 6 of 19 from the floor, 6 of 19, only had 16 points. But besides that, he played okay. Got 11 rebounds, 7 assists, but also had 5 turnovers. And what was negative in the plus minus as well. So, didn't have a very good game. Obviously shot pretty bad from the field, 6 of 19, only 16 points and 5 turnovers. So that's why the Lakers really didn't play up to their full potential. It was LeBron not bringing them back, because he was the reason they won the game at the very end. But, if he plays very well, I think the Lakers win by a larger fashion. But, we see them only win by 2 points. LeBron struggles shooting the ball. Anthony Davis shines. But the Clippers play very well. I want to take that into consideration. They played very well. They were missing only 40 points off the bench in Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams. So only missing 40 points off the bench. Like I said, Lou Will, Montrezl Harrell. Kawhi goes out and gets you 28 points, 2 blocks, 2 steals, and hits 3 3-pointers as well. Paul George goes and gets 30 points and hits 6 3-pointers. Plays some good defense. We know Paul George, he's looking like he's back better than ever almost, or as good as he was playing. So Paul George is playing very well. Kawhi played very well, and it was a 2-point game. If Paul George hits the shot that he shot at the end of the game, the Clippers win. So, or if he gets called for a foul, it wasn't a foul, but, either way, the Clippers could have ended up winning that game, despite being short-handed, down 40 points in both, 6 Man of the Year award contestants or candidates in Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell. So Reggie Jackson also went out there, got him 10 points, 4 assists, or 4 assists, 6 rebounds. Beverly got 12 points. So they didn't play too well. The Clippers did. The 2 stars did, and like I said, Reggie Jackson played pretty well, and Beverly. But they did miss their guys in Williams and Harrell. 40 points off the bench, and we're still only 2 points away, 3 points away from winning the basketball game. So LeBron, he didn't shoot well. Clippers were short-handed, 40 points. Lakers only win by 2 points. So they win. They end up winning. The outcome is one we like for the Lakers. They win. But, in a short-handed Clipper team, for the Lakers only to win by 1 point. Again, LeBron did struggle, but they only won by 1 basket to a short-handed Clipper team, which is a little worrying if you're a Los Angeles Lakers fan. Let's go ahead and talk about their game against the Toronto Raptors. That's the game they lost. Okay, they lost against the Raptors 107-92. 92-107 they lost. So by a decent amount, the Lakers and LeBron lost, and Anthony Davis lost to the reigning champions in Toronto. Okay, Anthony Davis though goes 2 for 7, only 14 points, only 6 rebounds for him. So 14 points, 6 rebounds, and is a negative, a minus 17 for the game. LeBron, he shoots okay from the field. He gets 20 points, 10 rebounds, only 5 assists, but is also a minus 20 for the game. So Anthony Davis, LeBron James, both guys obviously did not play very well, did not play well at all. And that was a large reason we saw the Lakers come up short, not play well. Obviously, like I said, a large part to do Anthony Davis and LeBron bad games. Kuzma was kind of the bright spot for the Lakers, 16 points again, 3 3-pointers. So, like I said before, they need Kuzma to be a reliable third guy. He has been nothing but that so far, actually. At least as a third option. He's been nothing but that. 16 points in both games, at least 3 3-pointers in both games. So, playing good defense as well. So, he has shown up so far in the 8 seeding games. But if you watch the game, I just look at the stat line again. Wow, Kyle Lowry. No one could guard on the Laker roster. No one could guard Kyle Lowry. Really showing the loss of Avery Bradley here, being their best guard defender. He would have had to guard Kyle Lowry and probably would have, messed him up a little more than an Alex Caruso and a Dion Waiters and J.R. Smith. So So, yes, they are missing Everly Bradley, and it really did show against Toronto, but no one could guard Lowry last night, or a couple nights ago. 33 points, career high, 14 rebounds, 6 assists. He had like 5 3-point, a lot of 3-pointers, so he played very well from the floor. Shot the ball well, and looked like the best player on the court that night. He played very well. No one could guard him. You know, the loss of Everly Bradley really showed them, and they showed how good of a team they were. So I really did have kind of 2 takeaways from the weekend of basketball, or for the Lakers, for the Lakers weekend. Number one, the Raptors and the Clippers are deep. They are super deep, and the Raptors especially should be looking as a real threat to make it to the finals, a real threat in the Eastern Conference. I'm going to get to that in my last segment, so stick around for that. But the Raptors and the Clippers, both very deep teams. You know, for the Clippers to be 1 basket away from winning, and to be losing their 2 best bench players, the 2 best bench players in the NBA. So they missed both of those guys, only lost by 2 points, and were missing 40 points. The Raptors at full strength beat the crap out of the Lakers, because the Lakers, to my second point, the Lakers really struggle when LeBron and Anthony Davis aren't great. When they aren't really good, the Lakers struggle. Okay, we saw Kuzma play very well. Besides that, LeBron, Anthony Davis struggle, and when that happens, the Lakers struggle. We saw them lose by 15 points. Large part, like I said, LeBron and Anthony Davis play bad. The Lakers struggle. Raptors and Clippers are both very deep teams. Again, Toronto should be taken into consideration, into higher consideration. But the schedule, for the bright side for the Lakers, the schedule is going to get easier. Similar to the Pelicans, they had 2 of their hardest games back to back in the Clippers and the Raptors. The Lakers did. Obviously, the Pelicans played the Jazz and the Clippers. So both of those teams played the 2 hardest games right back to back. The Lakers did what they wanted to do, I'm sure, playing those 2 teams, and split it even 1-1. If they went 2-0 or 0-2, man, they really would have been worried, and my segment would be different today, saying yes, the Lakers are struggling, but they split the difference. They go 1-2. If they go 2-0, I'm probably saying they're looking great. But they split the difference, go 1-1. I do think they are. I don't think they're struggling, but when Anthony Davis and LeBron don't show up 100% or 90% even, that team struggles. They really don't have an identity. And watching those games as well, let me know if you guys thought this as well. The spacing for the teams, what I thought was terrible for the Lakers. I thought it was really clogged up. It was obvious that they was going through LeBron or Anthony Davis. The floor was not spread whatsoever in comparison to a team like Toronto, where the floor seems so spread. They're moving the ball so quickly and efficiently to find the best shot. So I didn't necessarily see that from the Lakers. I saw a really bunched up, not a spread formation, what you really want to see in today's game. So I wasn't thrilled with what I did see from the Lakers, but I don't think you should be worried for them. LeBron hasn't shot great. Anthony Davis played very good in the first game, terrible in the second game. So they got to find their feet still. We thought they'd come in and not miss a beat. They are human. It's proven they are human. They're going to have some mistakes. They're going to have to work at it. But like I said, the schedule gets easier for Los Angeles, and we're just going to have to see if they can, win out. And either way, they don't have to win out, because they pretty much have that number 1 spot in the Western Conference locked up. So they need to pace themselves, play good basketball, have some good rotations, finalize their rotations and players. Once that is done, they're going to be looking in great shape for the playoffs. So that is what the Lakers need to be looking for. That's what the Lakers need to be doing in these easier games. I also think the outcome will be a whole lot of W's for the Lakers going forward. Not necessarily struggling, but I want to go ahead and move on. enough with those Los Angeles Lakers, a team we always see in the media. Let's move on to a team we don't always see in the media, the Indiana Pacers and their guy Victor Olidipo. That is going to be my topic next. Don't go anywhere.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, guys. Like I said before the break, let's talk about a team that we don't always talk about, and that is the Indiana Pacers. Weeks ago, a story came out saying that Victor Olidipo, obviously the star in Indiana, came out and said he was not planning on playing in the NBA's restart down in Orlando. Obviously what we see now. The story came out and said Oladipo was not playing, was going to continue to rehab the injury he suffered last year. So that was the story. I personally did a segment on this show, and I thought it would be smart. I was all for that. I thought it'd be smart for him to sit out, continue to rehab that injury. Because in my opinion, he didn't quite seem himself when he returned in the regular season. He only averaged 13, 14 points, was not shooting a very high percentage, was not playing very good basketball. We didn't play a whole lot to be taken into consideration, but still wasn't playing very good basketball, wasn't shooting very well, didn't seem like himself. Almost seemed like a shell of himself, from years prior, what we saw, especially because years prior, the best thing we saw from him, almost the last thing it feels like we saw from him, was him going to 7 games with LeBron in the Eastern playoffs, going 7 games with LeBron and the Cavaliers, which is something, not a whole lot of teams can say they've done. So, he then went on and swept the Toronto Raptors, with DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, even Siakam was on the team. So, they challenged LeBron's Cavaliers, Victor's team did more than the Toronto Raptors that season. So, to see him come back and only average 13 points, yeah, I was all for him sitting out the restart and completely rehabbing his injury. But he changed his mind, it seems like. And he's now going to play in the NBA restart. I caught one of the Pacers games, scrimmage games actually, and I saw Victor Oladipo out there playing, and I was like, what? The last thing I saw, as far as Victor, was that he wasn't even going to Orlando, or at least if he went, he wasn't going to be playing. So I was surprised to see him playing in the NBA's scrimmage games, but once I saw that, I thought to myself it was pretty much a done deal, that he would be playing in the official restart. And, now that they are, it seems like he might have made the right choice. They're 1-0 so far, so not a huge sample size, but they played well in their scrimmage games, and they played well in their one seeding game so far. Like I said before in my segment, when Oladipo first got hurt, that, it really was a blow for this team. He was a huge part, especially what he did against LeBron. So I thought it was a huge blow, especially because the team is so deep, honestly, or not so, but it's a pretty deep team, especially, for them to be losing their star, still be so high in the rankings in the conference. So a relatively deep team in the Indiana Pacers, and a team, in my opinion, that has the potential to, eventually upset a team in the Eastern Conference playoffs. So I think they have the potential to upset a team. Their first game was against the 76ers. They beat them 127-121. Oladipo played, I don't quite have his minutes, but he played a decent amount in the game, had 15 points, 7 rebounds, hit a couple of three-pointers. So, about what you would kind of want from him. Didn't play his usual amount of minutes, but played a decent amount, 15 points, like I said, 7 rebounds, a couple of three-pointers, so he played pretty well. Not necessarily up to the standard that we have seen, the best we've seen from him, but he played pretty well. But, they didn't really need Oladipo, last night. They really only needed what they got, the 15 points from him, because T.J. Warren, was the only player they needed that night to show up, and he did. T.J. Warren is officially the first player in the Orlando bubble to drop a 50-piece, to drop 50-plus points, okay? He's the first guy to do it. Who would have thought that? I know, right? Who would have thought T.J. Warren on the Indiana Pacers would have been the first player to drop 50 points? Definitely an underrated guy, an undervalued guy in this league for sure. But who would have saw that coming, okay? He had 53 points, shot 20 of 29 from the floor, only missed 9 shots, only shot 29, and had 53 points, made 9 of 12 3-point shots, okay? So 9 3-pointers. He only went to the line 4 times as well, so don't be saying he probably shot like 20 free throws. No, he only shot 4 free throws. Also, in the first quarter, though, he got out to a really hot start, had 29 points in the first quarter. Once I saw that, I knew he was destined for a big game, but a 50-piece, for him to keep up that level of play throughout the entire game and hit 50 points, man. For a guy that was traded, the Suns, if you guys don't remember, T.J. Warren was traded from the Suns to the Pacers for nothing but cash. Cash considerations, in fact. So he was traded for not even a pick, not even a player, cash, for money. T.J. Warren was traded to the Pacers for cash. Even though Warren has been a steady 18-point-a-night player for years now, he has been scoring, averaging 18 points per game, so almost 20 points, a scorer, a good scorer in the league for sure, and an undervalued guy, definitely. Comes out, drops 50 points. He's only 26 years old, if you guys don't know that. A young player, and he is a big reason I like this team, especially this year, if Oladipo can come back 100%. If he can come back who he was, or, 80% of what he was, this team definitely has the potential to upset teams going forward. But I never knew this guy had a 50-point game, in him. Either way, this Pacer team, they, like I said earlier, a decently deep team. They have the Holiday brothers, and Aaron and, what's the other guy's name? Aaron, not Drew, he's in Pelican, but, 2 Holiday brothers either way, so I can't remember the other guy's name, but both the Holiday brothers. They got Miles Turner, TJ Leaf, Doug McDermott, TJ McConnell, obviously TJ Warren, TJ Warren. They got a lot of TJs. Wow. TJ Warren, Victor Olidipo. So they got a pretty deep team. Pretty sure they got Collison on there too, but a pretty deep team, and a team, in my opinion, that can upset a team in this Eastern Conference. And, for them to beat a healthy 76ers team, definitely, I don't want to say it shows who they are, because every night they're not going to have 50 points from T.J. Warren. So I don't want to say what we saw is things to come every single night. That's what we're going to see going forward. No, I don't think we're going to always see, like I said, the 50 points from T.J. Warren. Obviously, no. He's gonna more than likely be around his average, where he's been at for the last couple of years, or many years. 18, 20 points a night is more than likely what he's going to give you. Maybe he can give you up to 25 to 30 on a night, but no more than that. You shouldn't be expecting more than 20, 25 points from him. More than 20 a night, honestly, from him consistently. And then Miles Turner, I'm not sure if he's 100% healthy. I think he went down in one of the games. Obviously, Victor is somewhat of a question mark. But for them to go out and beat a healthy 76ers team, a team that has Joel Embiid in the game, against the Pacers, don't think they played terribly. The Sixers did. No, they played pretty well, or very well. Embiid goes out and gets 40 points, 21 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Okay, so he plays very well. A 40-20 game, gets 3 blocks. So he's doing it on both ends of the court. He's dominating many areas of the court. Tobias Harris goes out and gets you 30 points, 8 rebounds. It's a couple of 3-pointers. So you get 40 points from Embiid. You get 30 points from Tobias Harris. You also get 19 points from Ben Simmons. You get a handful of assists from Simmons as well as 13 rebounds from Ben Simmons. So Simmons, Harris, Embiid combining for almost 90 points, or 90 points between them, actually. Still not enough to get it done against this Pacer team. Obviously, it had to do with the somewhat legendary performance from T.J. Warren, the 53 points, the first to do it in the bubble. But either way, this team played very good, or very well. Still couldn't get it done against the deep team in Indiana. So this team, if they can play a fraction as good as what they did against the 76ers, I think they do have what it takes to compete and possibly beat a team like the Sixers. Probably, the Sixers are so talented, so I would bet against that, but they can definitely compete with them, kind of push them in a series, win a couple of games. Especially in a team like the Sixers who haven't clicked, they have yet to mesh and figure it all out. So in comparison to a team in the Pacers who know exactly what they are and how to play, and a team like the 76ers who don't necessarily know. But again, I could see them upsetting and definitely competing with teams like Philly, maybe Miami. I see them beating if they end up matching up with them. Probably not, but in the matchup with like a Brooklyn or the Magic or anything like that. Unlikely, obviously, because of the seeding, but still one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, it's no. In my next segment, I want to talk about the real contenders to win the Eastern Conference, and the Pacers are not going to be listed in there. But they're in that kind of second tier, in the Eastern Conference with Philly and Miami, kind of. They're in that second tier of good teams who could potentially upset a higher ranked team. But either way, a team I like in Indiana. Props to T.J. Warren for having such a great career game. He should have some more props to his name. Some more value to his name going forward, as well as this Indiana roster should. I want to go ahead and take a quick break. Okay, when I come back from that, I want to discuss that Eastern Conference, a conference that we know is growing and is doing nothing but improving. So I want to talk about that conference and talk about who will make it out of the conference, who has some of the best chances to win the East. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back to my final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Thank you again for tuning in this long. This is probably my favorite segment of the day today. I want to talk about that Eastern Conference. Excuse me. Goodness, who I think, or who has some of the best chances to make it out of that Eastern Conference. Excuse me. So, pretty much all year. Okay, let me start with this. Pretty much all year, we saw Milwaukee as the team to beat in that Eastern Conference, pretty much at least. Okay, we saw Milwaukee as, the beast of the East, the favorite to make the finals out of the Eastern Conference. Okay, that's pretty much what we saw, and rightfully so. They have the best record in the East and in the NBA, in total. Okay, they got the best record in the league. They also have the best rated defense in the league. Obviously, it depends on who you like. I like the Clippers really a lot defensively. I like Toronto a lot defensively, but defensively, the Bucks are rated the number 1 team in the league. They're being led by the MVP's front runner in Giannis Antetokounmpo. Okay, and we saw them in their first seeding game, especially, just for their props. We saw them in their first seeding game really, beat the Boston Celtics. Giannis had a huge part with that, was the biggest factor, obviously. 36 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists. But, okay, the but you guys were all waiting for, I'm sure. This Bucks team is kind of similar to the Laker team, not 100%, but in a sense, let me explain myself. It's similar in a way that if the star or stars in the Lakers case, but in the Bucks case, if the star in Giannis doesn't play well, that team is going to struggle. Okay, that team is probably going to lose or have a tough one. Maybe they'll pull it off in the end, like LeBron, just because of a clutch play. But against the Clippers, like we saw. But for the most part, when Giannis struggles, the Bucks are going to struggle, and they're not going to play well. Obviously, what you would think. When your best player struggles, the team struggles. Not always what you see from the really deep teams, though. Okay, I'll talk about that in a second, but Milwaukee, no real second star in my opinion. Okay, they have Giannis, they have Chris Middleton. Yes, who's a nice player, who's a good player. Sure, if you want to call him an all-star, you can call him an all-star. Sure, but he's not a star in this league by any means, and he's somewhat inconsistent character. He's an inconsistent player. We see. Especially in the postseason. So the Bucks, very similar to the Lakers in the sense that if their star player doesn't play well, that team is not going to play well. Like I said, no real second star in Milwaukee, in my opinion. So with all of that into consideration, how good, in fact, is this Bucks team? How good are they, and how far can they make it? Okay, we saw them beat the Boston Celtics in their first seeding game, but in their second seeding game, I just got done watching it. The Houston Rockets just beat them. It was a very close game, but we see them come up short. Giannis plays a great game. He plays fantastic, but it's a one-man show, and the Bucks come up short. Are we going to continue to see this? Okay, in comparison to teams like Boston and teams like Toronto, which are very, very deep. Okay, these are two very deep teams. We saw, we saw them look like clearly the better team when Toronto played the Lakers. It looked like the Toronto was clearly the better team. But just to go ahead and talk about them for a second, they got Siakam, Lowry, Van Vliet, Ibaka, Gasol, Anunoby. And, they have experience on top of all that. So they got players, they got experience. And then when you're talking about, the Boston Celtics, who the Bucks did beat, yes. But when you look at that fine print, when you look at the box, the stats, the best player in Boston, in Jason Tatum, had 5 points. He had 5 points at the end of the game. He shot 2 for 18. He made 2 of his 18 shots, had 5 points. But, Jaylen Brown had 22 points. Gordon Hayward had 17 points. Kemba Walker had 16 points. Marcus Smart off the bench has 23 points. Okay, so their best guy in Jason Tatum does not play well. But they then have 4 guys back it up with great games or very good games, and that's why we only see the Boston lose by 7 points, despite only having 5 points from their star in Jason Tatum. That is the biggest difference in Toronto, Boston, and the Bucks. Okay? Both teams, in my opinion, are much deeper than Milwaukee. Don't get me, don't get me wrong. Giannis definitely has, a good set of players with him, a good supporting cast. Don't get me wrong, okay? He definitely has a good group of guys, a group. He has Chris Middleton with him, again, a very nice player, not a star like LeBron has Anthony Davis or Kawhi has Paul George, but a nice player, kind of like having like a Kyle Lowry as your second best player or something like that. Okay, I think Lowry's way better than I'd take him over Middleton. But still, the point is, when Jason Tatum doesn't play great, he has Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, Kemba Walker, Marcus Smart to kind of back him up, have his back. But when Giannis doesn't show up, he has Chris Middleton, who is somewhat flaky and doesn't always show up. Brook Lopez, Wesley Matthews, Eric Bledsoe, who isn't much of a scorer, but he doesn't have the guys that Toronto has, like Siakam, Lowry, Van Fleet, Ibaka, Gasol. So the Bucks are not as deep as teams like the Toronto Raptors and the Boston Celtics. But the Bucks, when they play these teams, they do have the X factor in Giannis. They have the best player in both series in Giannis Antetokounmpo. Okay, it's no doubt Giannis is the best series. Giannis is better than Jason Tatum. Giannis is better than Siakam. So yes, Giannis is the best player in all the series. So there's a point in the Bucks' favor. Like I said, the Bucks definitely do have a very good supporting cast, and at that, a great defense. Okay, they're the number 1 defense in the league today. So they have a very good defense, a good supporting cast. Not a great one, but a very good supporting cast. It's no Toronto, no Boston, similar to Milwaukee, to the Lakers, where they got 1 or 2 guys, or Milwaukee, the 1 guy, and then he has the 1 star, and then not too many other guys you can necessarily rely on. A lot of good role players, but not guys who can show up if Giannis is not showing up. He obviously needs to show up game in and game out. But we're going to see that going forward. Can he carry this Bucks team past these deep teams like Toronto and Boston and Miami? Can Giannis be the one-man band and do it all and win? We'll see. The East is up for grabs. We'll see who can win it. That's the end of the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. Go check us out on social media if you can. Go check us out, like our pages. Thank you so much for the support. That's it this week. Continue watching basketball. I'll see you guys on Thursday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.